That's all your car.
Yeah, that's right.
Put a flat spot on the arm wheel.
There it goes.
No, that would be much better.
To the alley. The suspect's completely vanished.
Sound effective 11:06 a.m. Who's copying? Over.
Intercession City, Florida. That's near Orlando. The train was bound for New York with a stop in Philadelphia tomorrow morning. At least 70 people were hurt, including at least 2 from Philadelphia, although most of the injuries were not serious. Officials now say train dispatchers were notified the truck had stalled on the tracks, but they were mistaken when they thought the Amtrak train would arrive 15 minutes later than it did. State police tried in vain to flag down the train before the collision. 1 man is dead, several other people injured. The collision happened in central Florida, the town of Intercession City, not far from Orlando. KYW3's Joyce Evans with more on the crash and its survivors.
Slam. I slammed into the table we were sitting at, and I just couldn't believe what happened.
Like slamming into a brick wall is how eyewitnesses describe the train running as fast as 80 miles an hour, ramming the tractor trailer carrying an 82-ton generator.
At the very last minute, it got hung on the track, and supposedly within about 5 minutes after the thing got hung up, then the train came along.
There's a curve just before you get to that railroad crossing, and they had no time to stop, and we had very little time to react.
The truck, the generator, the train engine, and several passenger cars all went flying. Miraculously, no one was killed.
I just want to know how they're doing.
A distressed Margie Ware rushed to 30th Street Station, eager to find out what happened to her 17-year-old daughter, Rebecca, and 20-month-old granddaughter, Tawanda. They were among 11 passengers headed for Philadelphia. Rebecca called her mother tonight from the hospital. Both are in good condition.
That's all I heard was a big boom, and I tripped over somebody, and Tawanda just flew out my hand. And I was on the floor. I was like, "Mommy, Mommy!" And I was calling you. You wasn't even there.
I know, honey, I know. Well, as long as you're all right, that's the most important thing.
I know. Every time I close my eyes, I get flashbacks. I don't want to get on no more trains.
We'll get them back as soon as they're comfortable, and we can get them back on the next available train or any other type of transportation. We can bring them back up to the Northeast.
Amtrak officials say passengers who decide to come on back on the train should be arriving here at 30th Street Station between noon and 2 p.m. tomorrow. For Margie Ware, the worst is over.
I'm relieved.
No word yet on when her loved ones will return. Joyce Evans, The News Tonight.
A deadly crash in Delaware just north of phone number in case you need to check on passenger information.
Crash today of an Amtrak train near Orlando, Florida. It happened in Intercession, about 20 miles southwest of Orlando. The 8-car Tampa to New York train crashed into a tractor trailer that had stalled on the tracks. Frantic state troopers tried to flag the train down, but the engineer couldn't stop in time. Mercifully, no one was killed, but 70 people were hurt. Emergency personnel were treating many of the passengers at the scene. We heard from one of them.
I'm sitting back enjoying the scenery outside, and next thing you know, a big bang, and face goes right into the chair, and next thing you know, people all over the floor.
4 of the 8 cars derailed, and a 150-pound generator that had been on the truck was found hundreds of yards down the tracks. There were 11 people on the train with tickets for Philadelphia, scheduled to arrive tomorrow morning. At 30th Street Station, Margie Ware was seeking more information about her daughter, Rebecca, and Rebecca's daughter, 21-month Philadelphia. Ironically, Commissioner, and will take over for the retiring W. Graham Claytor on December 7th. The state of New Jersey has certified Montgomery County. Action News reporter David Henry has that story.
It's a symphony of motion orchestrated by the members of the North Penn Model Railroad Club in Lansdale. They've spent almost 2 decades and thousands of hours constructing this huge model train display. But they've lost their lease, and if they don't find a new home soon, the club and its layout will be permanently derailed.
We are looking for an area that is approximately 2,000 square foot, which is approximately what is here now. In the Lansdale area, if we could.
The club will be holding its last open house over the next 2 weekends, and then they'll have to pack it in.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt taking it apart. But if we have a new home, we'll just be looking forward to that, and it'll kind of soften the pain. Without a home, gee, we don't know what we're going to do. We're going to probably end up putting it in storage somewhere.
This huge layout was almost 20 years in the making. They now have just 2 months to take it all apart piece by piece. It'll be a very difficult and complicated job.
Some of that we will be able to take apart. Some of those things are casings that we can take apart and pack to store. But a majority of the hillsides and so forth, we're just going to lose it. It's not going to be salvaged.
A lot of hard work went into making these hillsides look as natural as they did.
Yes, we just hope that we have the talent to do it again.
This layout grew up free-form over the years. If they get another chance, the club will make sure the next layout can be taken apart easily. But if they don't find a new home soon, it's the end of the line. I'm David Henry, Channel 6 Action News in Lansdale.
Drivers of old trolleys are trying to preserve some of the public transit's past. A group of trolley buffs, if they get their way, trolleys like this one will fill a National Trolley Museum in Mount Airy. The group gathered at the old Mount Airy Depot today to put its idea on track.
If this project does come to fruition, that we will be able to run 23 trolleys of all generations, trolleys that are 80 years old or even modern trolleys, up and down the entire strip of Germantown Avenue.
The Trolley Museum boosters dedicated this trolley club car in honor of the late council member Herb DeBerry, a strong advocate of the museum. The Route 23, by the way, is the longest continuous trolley line in the country. And that's the news tonight. I'm Beverly Williams, Craig Reber, Pat Shiraki, and Howard Eskin get your morning goal.
America's mighty grizzly bears. Huge, ferocious, and independent, the grand grizzlies are one of the last remaining symbols of our wilderness. Few people ever see grizzlies like this in their natural habitat, but we were able to obtain this rare, exclusive footage videotaped in northern Montana's Glacier National Park by this man, Walt Grizzly Derby. Walt has spent years detailing their every move, and he admits he's obsessed with grizzlies.
I had names for most of them. Molly, Mo, Ringer, Scarback, the individual, the blonde grizz, Goliath. He was a dandy. But I get to know them all, and they all have a little different personalities, and I really do get attached to them.
But Walt's beloved bears are facing death in this park that's supposed to be their refuge. They're being hit and killed by railroad trains roaring through the sanctuary. This track is a major route between Chicago and Seattle, and every day 24 freight and passenger trains pass through. 9 bears have already died on the tracks. 5 of those were breeding females. Some had cubs. 9 bears may not sound like a large number, but with only a few hundred left, it's actually a big chunk of the grizzly bear population. The bears were killed when they were on the tracks eating corn, which had spilled from several different train wrecks caused by equipment failure. More than 100 railroad cars derailed, dumping thousands of tons of corn, which attracted hungry grizzlies to the tracks.
And once the bear finds a food source, he's going to come back and check it out and check it out. And the young that the female brings in, she'll come back and check it out. She'll bring her cubs back and check it out. If the corn's gone, they'll leave, but they'll come back every year and see what happens. It's well known amongst the bears where to go get corn.
People who cared greatly about grizzlies, like Walt, waged a battle for years to get the grain off the tracks. Even though the corn is gone now, there's one more man-made attraction which continues to dump on the tracks. Glacier National Park Chief Ranger Steve Fry.
The bears are attracted to the railroad tracks in part because of the sanitation problems that we have with coaches. The fact that sewage, even though it's treated, is flushed from the coaches onto the tracks.
And it's the smell of human waste from the Amtrak trains which continues to lure the bears to the deadly rails. We were shocked to learn that dumping human waste onto the tracks is standard operating procedure for all Amtrak trains around the country, even in a place as pure as Glacier National Park.
When you think about it, whether it's here with our bears at the park, or whether it's in Illinois or New York, human waste and garbage being thrown along in other people's backyards, basically. It's not a very good neighbor type of relation, is it? They should clean up their own mess.
It's less than neighborly. For the threatened grizzly bears, it can be deadly. Through the lens of his video camera, Walt Derby has seen some close calls, like this one we're about to show you.
I haven't videotaped a sow and two cubs, and I thought that they were going to get it. The train was coming, the bears were running down the track on the side, and the train was gaining on them, and they cut across the track. It was 5 seconds from the last cub got across before the train zoomed by.
Walt, Montana's Fish and Game Department, and the National Park Service people have been trying to get Amtrak's attention without luck. So we knew we needed to help Walt Derby and Glacier Park Ranger Steve Fry in their crusade to make Glacier a safer place for the bears.
What would the park like to see happen there?
We would like to see Amtrak view the corridor on the south end of Glacier as a priority for the placement of self-contained coaches.
Do you think that's a difficult thing for them to do? I mean, people who have RVs are able to contain their waste and dump it at an approved site. Why do you think Amtrak hasn't been able to accomplish this?
I don't know.
Have you spoken to them?
We learned that Amtrak plans to add waste containers to its passenger coaches by 1996, but that's 2 years away. And until then, Amtrak won't put containers on the cars going through Glacier Park because they claim the coaches are switched around to different routes, and it would be too difficult. We needed a stopgap measure, which would cut down on the amount of sewage on the tracks until 1996. We wrote a letter to Amtrak President Graham Claytor, who never responded. We made repeated calls to the Public Affairs Office until finally an Amtrak spokesman in Washington, D.C. took our call. He refused to be interviewed on camera. But Cliff Black told us, quote, "We really are not in a position to make a policy change now." He also reluctantly admitted the real reason Amtrak didn't want to acknowledge the issue of preventing waste dumping on the track in the park is that, quote, "This issue would spread, and ultimately we'd be shutting off toilets everywhere."
This is the federal courthouse in Seattle, Washington. After Amtrak repeatedly refused all of our requests to discuss this on camera, our search for a solution brought us here. Hi, I'm Katrina Daniel. Nice to see you.
Diplomacy and persuasion failed to convince Amtrak, so we asked for help from the National Wildlife Federation, one of the most powerful environmental groups in the country. Their senior counsel is Tom France.
It's clear that Amtrak is violating the Endangered Species Act right now. The Park Service and the Fish and Wildlife Service and the State Wildlife Agency all agree that this is a problem for grizzly bears. I think simple signs or an announcement asking people to cooperate and hold on would certainly help reduce, if not eliminate, the problem. So I think that there are relatively simple and easy steps that Amtrak can and should be taking to protect bears.
How far are you guys willing to go?
Well, as I say, if we don't see Amtrak police its own operations, litigation is probably likely. Right now they're in denial, and we have to move them to acceptance and then action.
You think you'll get acceptance and action from Amtrak?
One way or another. Either voluntarily or through compliance order from the court.
The National Wildlife Federation and other defenders of the grizzly bear are outraged at Amtrak's refusal to take even the simplest step of closing off its bathrooms for the time it takes the train to travel through this park. Until Amtrak becomes more environmentally friendly, the grand grizzly bear may continue to face danger on the tracks. The grizzlies are hibernating now and won't emerge from their dens until spring. While the bears sleep safely, the National Wildlife Federation is now likely to take Amtrak to court, suing the railroad for violating the Endangered Species Act. We'll stay on top of the story to make sure the fight to save the grizzly bear stays on track in Glacier National Park.
Katrina, thanks. A train tragedy in Florida. There are reports that figure skating champ Tanya Harding is being charged in the attack on Ryan.
Crews continue to search tonight the wreckage of a circus train looking for a missing passenger. The Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey circus train derailed this morning in heavy fog in Florida. 200 circus employees were on board the train. One died, one is still missing, and a dozen are nursing minor injuries. The train cars carrying the elephants, the lions, bears, and horses did not jump the tracks. Investigators are on the scene trying to determine whether fog may have played any part in the accident. A circus manager says the performers and animals will regroup now and continue because the show must go on tomorrow night. Meantime, 2 members of a television news crew covering that derailment in Lakeland, Florida were hurt in a helicopter accident. The chopper crashed into a grassy field about a half-mile away from the train derailment site. The field was being used as a makeshift heliport for news helicopters. Emergency workers say the 2 news staffers on board this chopper, a pilot and a photographer, were not seriously injured.
Let's way to Orlando, where the troupe is supposed to perform tomorrow. Here's ABC's Tom Foreman.
The circus train crashed in heavy fog. A third of the 59 cars derailed, killing an elephant trainer and an unidentified woman. 13 other circus employees were injured.
I saw nothing. I was inside the train, and we went into an emergency stop procedure, which is automatic. And I'm not going to speculate what caused this.
We started hearing kids screaming, so we went and started getting the people out that we could find.
As news crews rushed to the scene, a strange twist produced more injuries. A news helicopter hovering over the wreckage went down with 2 people on board. The pilot was badly hurt.
The pilot said the shift, they wasn't responding of coming up, and he couldn't get none up, so he cut the fuel off, and it just dropped.
Nearly 200 people were on board the train and dozens of animals. None of the boxcars containing the lions, elephants, bears, and horses derailed. No animals were hurt.
There is still no clear indication as to what caused this accident. Late this afternoon, federal authorities arrived on the scene to begin their investigation. Tom Foreman, ABC News, Auburndale, Florida.
In Boston today, an emotional
melting snow and ice to create serious flooding problems across the region. Cars that yesterday were stuck on icy patches were today caught in flooded intersections like this one on Lancaster Avenue in Radnor Township. Crews try to open ice-clogged storm drains, stop to help stranded motorists. In Philadelphia,
nearby parking lots. Unfortunately, people harmed by today's meltdown have not reached ground zero. Continued warm temperatures will dissolve remaining ice in the area.
In and out of Philadelphia, both Amtrak and SEPTA passengers at 30th Street Station and elsewhere had to cool their heels twice today. 2 times, both the regional rail lines and Amtrak shut down. Once because of a power failure at 30th Street and once because of a transformer problem at Wayne Junction. Both SEPTA and Amtrak are back on track tonight. Elsewhere on mass transit, SEPTA buses are running normally with occasional detours to get around flooding. The situation is the same with New Jersey Transit and DART in Delaware, and there are currently no problems at Philadelphia International Airport. And what a sight for sore eyes this was this morning in South Philadelphia. Not that they needed it today, but 42 freight cars of salt arrived from upstate New York. As you know, this region was virtually out of rock salt, and with the possibility of snow on Sunday, this shipment is critically important. But the new salt is only enough for one more storm, and so PennDOT will continue its convoy of trucks and trains to bring down more from upstate New York. Did we say the possibility of snow on facilities? Found R7 Trenton train derail while it headed into the Trenton station and struck the platform. Fortunately, there were no passengers on board and none of the crew was hurt. And this was the scene tonight at Washington and Ash Streets in Conshohocken. A westbound R6 Norristown train hit a tractor trailer that was stuck on the track. The truck had gotten stuck in the snow. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries, but the R6 line had to be shut down while crews cleared the wreckage. Officials at Philadelphia
trains are running, but with delays up to 1 hour. Operations are pretty much back to normal at 30th Street Station in Philly, but it was a mob scene at the height of the storm with long train delays. If you have plans to hop a train, you might want to call ahead to find out if yours is on time. And because of the storm, commuters relying on SEPTA are dealing with problems. There are delays and detours on all SEPTA bus, trolley, and rail lines. No service on the Route 100 or on the R6 Norristown Railroad line. And there's a mixed bag on other public transit.
Shed in Plymouth Mead probably used all the time, just blocks from their home in Delaware County. But this morning, as their car was crossing the tracks, it was hit broadside by a freight train. 4 were killed: Frank Kilgore, his wife Linda, and their 2 sons, Frank Jr. and Sean. As Rich Maneri reports, investigators are trying to determine just how the accident happened.
The 4 people riding in this Ford Bronco probably never knew what hit them. The driver was trying to cross the train tracks at Naaman's Creek Road in Upper Chichester at about 9 this morning.
We heard the train stop all of a sudden, and we thought the train had derailed first.
But the train didn't derail. It hit the Bronco broadside, dragging it and the passengers more than 100 yards, leaving a gruesome and graphic trail. Pieces of the vehicle were seemingly everywhere, some impaled on the front of the train. A 33-year-old man, his 27-year-old wife, and their 2 children, boys ages 4 and 6, were killed.
I have kids of my own, and it's just horrible to even think about anything like this happening.
Probably just taking a ride out on a nice day, you know, and 4 people dead now.
The warning lights at the Naaman's Creek crossing were working at the time of the crash, and the train's horn did apparently sound. The 4 members of the train's crew would not comment as they left the scene, and police are being very careful not to assign blame before they learn more about the accident.
Whether the person did not see the lights, whether the person was trying to beat the train, we don't know at this time.
This is not the first accident at this intersection. While there are flashing lights to warn drivers that a train is coming, there are no guardrails that come down to stop traffic. That's something neighbors have been complaining about for a long time.
There's been quite a lot of accidents and quite a lot of people killed.
Sandra Evans says protective barriers at Naaman's Creek crossing are long overdue.
They were supposed to, 2 years ago, put guardrails in here, the ones that come down, because of it being residential and being heavily traveled. But I don't know what happened to the borough or to the rail company or whoever's supposed to be doing it. I don't know why they're not putting them in.
For that little money, it's just ridiculous. You know, they could afford to put something up.
Investigators don't know if guardrails would have made any difference in this case, but the people who live in this neighborhood and saw the vivid results of today's crash are convinced that something needs to be done before another family out for a drive never makes it home. In Upper Chichester, Rich Maneri, the 10 o'clock news.
Also in the news tonight, the murder of a police officer in the line of duty.
Nancy and their 2 boys were killed instantly. Their Bronco was dragged for almost a mile. Some believe the victims couldn't see the flashing lights at the grade crossing because of morning sun glare. There are no crossing gates. An elderly man is no longer with us tonight.
Yes. Out northwest. No, it's got to
That's the revenue kid. That is a joke. The CW3.
You see out and they can't see it?
That's right.
So is it?
Bulletin. What's happening? Look, it's flat.
Oh yeah, look at the front end.
It's got the floor.
Blind end.
Blind end.
It's a blind end.
It's just flat going. Look, the city of Philadelphia. All right. Yeah, you never wrong.
You're not on the new list.
Oh, this is the new list? That takes 5 minutes to take.
How you doing? Yeah.
Is it the active feet right there? It's the active. It's the active.